Nowadays, with computer-generated imagery, it's a lot easier to achieve supernatural effects in movies. But back in the day when computers were still figuring out how to do CGI, movie makers would often have to come up with many weird and wonderful techniques in order to achieve the desired effect, whilst still looking halfway decent. And I can't think of a better example to demonstrate some of these ingenious techniques than the Indiana Jones movies. Because prior to making this video, I've often wondered myself just how they did create effects like this without CGI, or rooms this huge without using digital set extensions. How did they film such dangerous looking scenes in a safe way, and what did they use so much aluminium foil for? Well, in this video we're going to answer these questions and also discover just why the original Indiana Jones films turned out to be as good as they are. Temple of Doom was perhaps the darkest of the Indiana Jones trilogy, but it's also the one that best demonstrates the passion and ingenuity behind the saga, and it does so most clearly in the runaway minecart scene. This scene combined life-size sets, detailed miniatures, stop-motion animation, live-action footage, matte paintings, and thousands of litres of water. The live-action part of the scene was all filmed on a large indoor set built in England, but most of the minecart footage was done on a miniature set. To save time and money, the filmmakers wanted to build a miniature set of the mine tunnels as small as possible. However, in order to get the shots that Lucas and Spielberg wanted, the camera had to be able to actually fit inside the tunnels. To solve this problem, they used a small Nikon camera and attached a larger film magazine with a motor to the back of it. This meant that the camera could follow behind the cart as it went through the tunnels. And so the tunnels could be made smaller and therefore were a lot cheaper. In fact, and this is where the aluminium foil comes in, the cavernous walls were actually made out of very affordable, scrunched up, painted aluminium foil. Now, in order to give the sensation of a speeding, rickety minecart, the footage actually had to be shot at a very low speed. The camera was only shooting one frame of film every second whilst being pulled slowly through the tunnels on a fishing line attached to a motorised capstan. In shots like this one, we actually see the occupants of the minecarts as they go by. However, had these occupants been completely static inside the cart, it would all then look like a toy model and the illusion would have been broken. So stop-motion puppets were built, starting with a metal skeleton that was put into a mould that rubber was injected into. The puppets were then dressed and painted, and then animated frame by frame using stop-motion animation. And as if it wasn't complicated enough, Mola Ram then tips over a massive water tank and thousands of litres of water blast through the mine tunnels. Obviously, for safety and for financial and logistical reasons, this also had to be done in miniature. But unfortunately, water doesn't scale very well. This is because of surface tension. A droplet of water has a certain size and won't easily become smaller, and so when a miniature set is used, a single droplet of water can seem to be as big as a basketball, as you can see in this example from the 1983 film You're the Hunter from the Future. Okay, this makes it pretty obvious that the set is a miniature model and ruins the effect. So, to avoid it looking just like a knocked-over cup of water, Industrial Light and Magic used a surfactant, which is basically a substance that reduces the water's surface tension, like detergent or something, and then installed a huge compressed air tank. Inside this model, they then concealed dozens of air nozzles in behind the rocks. The compressed air was then fired against the mass of water as it came down the tunnel, pushing it back so that any large droplet of water that came away from the main body of water was atomized and forced back into it. The same tank of water used on that shot was also used on the cliff face shot. Here, a large miniature cliff face was built in front of a chute and the 2,000-litre water tank. The sequence was shot at high speed to make it seem even bigger than it actually was. To add to the cliff's grandeur, matte paintings were used to extend the set. In fact, incredibly detailed matte paintings were used heavily throughout the trilogy. But perhaps the most important use of painting was in the Last Crusade on the Invisible Bridge. Here they combined live-action footage with a miniature set and a physical bridge. The artist would then look through a fixed camera objective and paint the parts of the cliff that the bridge covered up onto the bridge itself, painstakingly matching tones and textures so that, from a fixed angle of the camera, the bridge became invisible. And it's not only until the camera moved that the illusion is revealed. However, the ingenuity behind the making of the Indiana Jones movies wasn't just in the iconic shots, as running alongside them were some very clever tricks to hide safety measures. The first one being from right at the beginning of the very first movie, after Indiana Jones fails to switch out the idol with the bag of sand and ends up getting chased by the Boulder. Nowadays they'd probably just use CGI, but back then they pretty much did it for real. Now, before you go thinking they could have just had a member of crew with a boulder chase Harrison around, the 3.5 meter high boulder made from wood, fiberglass and plaster still weighed close to 200 kilos, and so it would have been too heavy for anyone to carry or manipulate on their own. Also, Harrison had to repeat the shot 10 different times from 5 different angles. This meant that ILM had to get inventive with their safety measures. So in the end, they used long sticks hidden off camera that they could slide in to slow the boulder down should it be needed. But the artists at ILM didn't just use their creative noggins to make miniature sets, matte paintings and safety measures, they also had to make an incredible amount of extremely detailed models. For the Last Crusade, they made numerous vehicles including model planes and zeppelins, some complete with a tiny Sean Connery and Harrison Ford, a 1.5 meter metal tank for this shot, a model of a German plane in several different scales, including a wingless version and a miniature tunnel, and a full-size wingless plane for the live action shots. They also made various puppets for Donovan's decomposing face shot. For the Temple of Doom, they made various planes complete with a miniature mountaintop and a lava pit with a 1/4 scale cage and a motorized scale model of Kate Capshaw. And for Raiders of the Lost Ark, they made a model submarine, the melting head puppet, Wolf's imploding face puppet, the exploding head puppet, which in order to get the film its PG rating had to have a double exposed column of flame covering up the graphic detail of the head coming apart, as well as numerous fire, smoke, cloud and lightning effects. But what is perhaps the most surprising is that they actually managed to achieve an effect that almost looks like it could have been CGI. The spirits of the Ark in this scene look like they could have been computer generated, but in fact weren't. It was in fact a woman dressed in silk and made up in white, and swinging along with the camera on a trapeze. They filmed her against a black background as she swung backwards. This made her silk ribbons bellow forwards. Then they played the footage in reverse to get the enveloping effect. The little white clouds were formed in a water tank filled with cold salt water at the bottom and warm fresh water above. Tempera was then injected between the two layers to create the clouds. The ghosts were miniatures that were inside a water tank and being moved around on sticks, and they were filmed in slow motion in front of a black background. After seeing the tremendous amount of thought, work and passion that went into Spielberg's and Lucas's original trilogy, and the change for the worse that some fans felt the Lucasless fourth film took, we can only hope that despite neither Lucas nor Spielberg taking part in it, the fifth film somehow manages to capture the magic of the original three. Now that is a tough challenge. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And as always, if you like the music in this video, you can find links in the video description. And as always, please let us know in the comment section which movie VFX you'd like to see behind next.